This is Fight Fans Radio.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Untethered MMA on Fight Fans Radio. It is March 7th, 2013. If you want to reach the show, you can call us at 410-988-6525, and you can reach the three hosts on Twitter. You can reach me at It's Mike Fagan. You can reach Derek at FightLinkerSubbo, and you can reach Matt Roth at MattRoth512. Gentlemen, I'll get to you first, Derek. How's that burger?
It's fucking delicious. It's not the only delicious thing I've eaten today, but I'm happy to be here. I look forward to doing the show. It's nice to have all this news. It's sucker punching us coming out of left field, nowhere lately, and I get to come on the radio every Thursday and talk about it with these two absolute pariahs of the MMA media world, and that makes me happy.
And Matt, you got a little website that launched this week.
Yeah, I launched it today. It's called Pretty Hate Machines. I'm pretty stoked. It's been 2 months of not writing, and today I kind of got back in the saddle. This first story took a bit longer to do than I anticipated, just because too long away. My brain just got mush. But I interviewed Tyrone Spong as well. I have a couple stories in the tube for to get posted, and then I'm working on setting up an interview with the University of Minnesota wrestler that lost his eligibility because of his hip hop song that he put on YouTube and iTunes. So I'm pretty stoked to be back.
And if you can teach him like 3 things about MMA, we'll have him on the show.
That's actually the crazy thing about this guy. So not really crazy, because I think that's a goal of most college wrestlers at this point. But he after wrestling, he wants to get into MMA. So my angle for the interview is, the first thing I want to talk to him about is, he lost his eligibility for this year, and the university has threatened to take away his scholarship for next year. Because the whole thing is that he recorded the song, put it on YouTube, and put it on iTunes under his real name, which, according to NCAA rules, is a violation of the students can't make money thing with the contract. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the hip hop scene in the Twin Cities, and then also about his MMA aspirations. So I'm actually legitimately stoked about this, because not many people have actually gotten the chance to speak to him. I think it's only the New York Times that did.
And what was the inspiration for the name of the website?
Pretty Hate Machines. So when the Robot Combat League or Fighting League, the first episode aired, Ben Thappa and I were talking, and he told me that Pretty Hate Machines is a great name, and I love the name too. So and worst case scenario, I get rid of this whole writing thing, and I just start a band called Pretty Hate Machines, and it's the best band name ever.
That's true. It sounds more like a band name than a website for web articles.
Yeah.
So I got my big tournament on Saturday, boys, and I'm actually more looking forward to getting it out of the way, just so I can go eat food again. It's been 6 months of dieting and weight cutting, which I think is what spurred you to taunt me with your burger, Derek.
Oh yeah, I know that you're cutting weight right now, and people that are cutting weight, it's just lovely to get something delicious and eat it in front of them and comment on the texture and the juiciness of the meat. And
So how's that burger? So how's that burger? You should describe it.
well, it's got a little bit of butter on the bun, which I think makes a
Okay.
massive amount of difference in the moisture and the quality. These lovely seasoned fries, which, I mean, if you're trying to cut weight or if you're trying to do Atkins, potatoes and starch are just completely out of the question. The salt, it just jumps out on your taste buds, Mike. I know that you miss salt. It's a lovely thing.
It is a lovely thing.
He's so pissed right now. I love it. Oh, you can't retain any water, you pregnant woman. Ha.
I've actually been because the IBJJF tournaments you have to weigh in right before you go on the mat. So I've actually pretty much been at my weight for the last 2 weeks, and I actually just had a burrito before the show because if anything, I'm in danger of coming in way underweight because my metabolism, especially now that I've been dieting and working out.
Hey, on behalf of me and Ross,
Go fuck yourself.
fuck you.
So yeah, the other nice thing too, though, is that my division should be one of the first ones to go on Saturday at 9 a.m, which has its having to get up at 6 or 6:30 or 7 to get there, it's gonna suck. But getting it out of the way, knowing it's gonna be pretty much on time for me, and then the rest of the day I don't have to worry about it. It's gonna be sweet. Eric, our producer, just in the chat, and we'll just get to this right away. Then apparently Meltzer is reporting that Alliance is split away from Lloyd Irvin, which just adds to the long list of schools that are no longer affiliating themselves with Lloyd Irvin. Did either of you read Brent's latest report about the Lloyd Irvin situation?
Yeah, I was talking to Brent last week when he first got all the info, and he didn't tell me details, but he was like, "This is going to be this is going to be the boss fight, the boss battle, the basically the most important story in the entire thing." It's fucking disgusting. Like it's legitimately disgusting. What's going on at Team Lloyd Irving? I'm happy that the people on that Metal Chasers team have all bailed. It's something that needed to happen, and man, like you know when you there's words, but you don't want to say them because you don't want to jump to conclusions. Like everything is all from these guys saying like I was in this meeting and he said that and he said this or I heard from this person. So I don't want to 100% jump to a conclusion, but I'm 99% sure that Lloyd Irving is a scumbag, and so I have that 1% of doubt, but like this dude is a terrible person, dude.
Well, I mean, it'd be one thing if you had heard all this stuff, and a lot of it's hearsay in the sense that there's no direct evidence. It's just people saying Lloyd said this, Lloyd did that. But when you combine all that with his '89 rape trial, I mean, to me, he can try to rest his case in the fact that he was acquitted and all this stuff. But I mean, you put all the stuff together into context, and I just don't know how you can look at Lloyd Irvin and think that something's not right there or something's not wrong there. The big thing too, it'll be interesting to see what happens with his business because, Matt, you alluded to a lot of the Metal Chasers leaving, and the big one was Keenan Cornelius, who's in the jiu-jitsu world is sort of a prodigy. He just won a tournament recently. His first tournament at brown belt, just stormed through it. Lloyd was able to use those guys as sort of a loss leader. He paid for those guys to train. He had a house that they were living at. They didn't have to pay rent. And if he doesn't have that, those Metal Chasers to kind of promote the business, it'll be interesting to see how he's able to survive going forward.
Yeah, I mean the big thing is the Metal Chasers. That was a huge deal for him. But the other thing about Lloyd Irving is that all the affiliate schools, like every single one of those, they bought into the Lloyd Irving marketing machine. And the guy, look, say what you want about his personality. As far as marketing goes, He's really, really, really good at that. Like that's what he knows best. And the fact that all the affiliates, when all these stories came out, that the affiliates are parting ways, that I think is actually going to be the worst thing about this situation for Lloyd, is that he went from having a ton of people that bought into his system to people now seeing him for what he is and who he is. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the last that we hear about him.
Well, and it's interesting too. Kind of bring this back full circle to that tournament I'm going to on Saturday. There's a good handful of guys that are going to be representing Team Lloyd Irvin on Saturday, and I don't know how much of that. I mean, I think they had until yesterday night to make any changes to what weight class they wanted to compete at and what school they were affiliated with. But I'm assuming there's going to be a handful of guys. I know there's one purple belt that's one of the better purple belts in the country that'll be there, and it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of backlash against it. I imagine there won't be, just because I can't imagine people caring that much. But I wouldn't be surprised either if something happened.
See, I don't think that there's going to be backlash for those individuals. Look, if to me it's, you're competing for somebody, and you may or may not have known what was going on. I don't think that the medal chasers knew about them. All the the heinous crimes that this guy's doing. I don't think they knew about that, and so maybe this will be the last time that they're affiliated with Team Lloyd Irving before their schools split. Maybe their schools did split beforehand, but I personally, I couldn't hold it against somebody, the story broke on what? On Monday, Tuesday?
Well, I mean, it's been progressing over the last couple of months.
The final story broke on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's not a lot of time for a school to say, hey, we're parting ways. So I can't hold it against the competitors, but if this time next year, or this time 3 weeks from now, or whatever it's going to be, that they're still affiliated with this guy, I think then that it reflects on those people as opposed to them, them as just doing what they have to do.
And Derek, are you finished with that burger? You got anything to add on the Lloyd Irvin story?
I ate that entire fucking burger while you guys were talking. That's impressive. You know a lot more about the situation than I do. As someone who kind of took what Roth was saying earlier about not wanting to jump to conclusions, innocent until proven guilty. Someone who originally saw Lloyd's video in response to, I forget the guy's name, but one of the first ones that came out, and it's just clips of him, shit talking Lloyd Irvin, and the next one sitting next to him saying, "Thank you, Master Lloyd, for everything you've done for me." Da 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 da. And you don't necessarily have to believe in the validity of every one of Lloyd's accusers to, ignore the idea that where there's smoke, there's fire. And over again, Brent's done a great job of running this down in between lying about his fake child. It's been a very impressive effort on his part. Cut it out with the fake family shit, though, man. Seriously, just, own up.
Yeah, look, I mean, the big thing for me is that I think that I want to just, and this was a big thing for Brent too, which was it. I don't know if he wants me to discuss this on the air, but he was talking to these, to the people, the accusers, the victims, or whatever word you want to use. He was talking to them for quite a bit, and he while he wanted to post a story, he wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be any physical harm or to these people before he did it. So he made sure that they were safe beforehand, and I commend him for that. I think that's going above and beyond what a normal journalist would do. But
even should. I mean, I don't think Brent has to do that. No, it's a good thing that he did, though.
It's above and beyond what a journalist should do and normally would do. But I think in the case of something like this, where it's it's such a heinous accusation.
Yes.
You need to you need to think about the victims and the accusers before thinking about page views. And I appreciate that Brent has a solid foundation and solid base. That it wasn't just about the hey, how many people are going to read this. It was more about, are these people okay?
Yeah. And the other thing, I was talking about this on Twitter when the story broke. Where would this story be if Brent hadn't been following it? And full disclosure, I'm still good friends with Brent. I talk with Brent pretty, 3 or 4 times a week. But no one else in the media, from what I could see, was following the story at all. And there hasn't even been that much. Again, from my perspective, there hasn't been too much copy pasting about the story. It's just crazy to me that it's a pretty big story in the MMA, jiu-jitsu world, and there's really only one guy that's really pursuing it.
Well, it's such a scary story because, like Matt was saying, it's such a horrific allegation, but it's a collection of them, and a lot of these ones, especially the ones that I were reading on the underground, these long posts where they say, Lloyd was treating this girl like shit and would say these awful things to her. I wonder what else he was doing. Wink, wink. But they never go actually as far as to say he was physically taking advantage of this woman, because then that implies, I sat and watched that happen and I'm a pussy because I didn't do anything about it. I don't know if, in text, those kind of specific allegations have really been made out. And in that case, I think a lot of the more mainstream, larger media organizations are going to let guys like Brent do the hard leg work and take the risk. And then when a charge is finally filed, or when a big camp like Alliance separates, then they go back and pat him on the back for it. But they let him put his neck out there in the first place.
See, and I actually had this discussion with a couple of journalists yesterday, and what they said is that, and I'm taking the perspective that, in my opinion, I think this is probably the most important story so far this year, in MMA and BJJ, combat sports, whatever you want to say it. I think that this is the whole thing is probably, in my opinion, the biggest story of the year, But the person that I spoke to is that, the people that I was speaking to, they said that the UFC moving to the Fox Sports 1 or whatever it's going to be called. What was it called? Fox Sports 1?
Fox Sports 1, and we'll talk about that momentarily.
They said that, in their opinion, that's a much bigger deal. It's a much bigger story. I disagree. I don't think that's I don't think that's correct. I think that you need to you need to look at a bigger picture and not a UFC centric picture. And the reality is this is a way bigger deal.
Well, it's all subjective in how you judge in terms of big, in terms of human impact and justice being served, and the fact that he was able to get away with it for years and years, kind of the myopia of the MMA community and the MMA media. Sure, that's a huge story. In terms of people that are going to give a shit, and in terms of money changing hands and money potentially generated, the other stories are a lot bigger in a more conventional sense, but from a human interest story and from the actual import of the issue, when you really boil it down, I think you're right. But like I said, I mean, when you look at the numbers, who's going to read it, who's going to care, what's it going to matter? Fox Sports 1 and those kind of things are a bigger deal in that sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about it too is that it has that it has that quality to it, like a conspiracy, I don't want to compare it to the Catholic Church rape scandal, but it has that sort of layers got peeled off.
Mike.
No, layers got.
It's like Rand Paul yesterday saying, "I'm not saying that anyone is like Hitler, but I am saying that Hitler was elected."
just the aspect of the story where layers got peeled off, and you found more and more and more and more and more, and it looks from what I've read, it looks like there was a large-scale attempt from Lloyd on down to cover up some of the behavior.
Listen, Mike, I'm not calling you an asshole. But, however, there are parallels. No, you see how that doesn't work? It sounds like I'm calling you an asshole, is what I'm saying.
I am an asshole.
All right, well, cool. Well, I'm glad we agree, but if I said that, you would not think like, oh, well, he's just drawing a correlation. He's not drawing a comparison between one or the other. He's just mentioning them in the same sentence and saying they share certain qualities. That fucking filibuster yesterday was shit. I could go on a rant about that, but I won't.
Oh, yeah, we won't do that. But we will move on from depressing story of the year to maybe one of the nicest stories of the year. UFC on Fuel 8 coming from Japan. Did the best numbers on Fuel in the channel's history, which isn't terribly surprising. And right up top, Vanderlei Silva knocking out Brian Stann in maybe one of the greatest orgasms on Twitter in MMA history.
Oh my God, I can't. I'm disgusted that they allowed Vanderlei Silva to take this fight. That pugilistic dementia that you guys were talking about, the brain injuries, the slow reflexes, the inability to keep up, fighting outside of his weight class against a much bigger athlete who's actually in his prime as far as a fighter goes. It's disgusting that they let it. Oh wait, he won?
How many points dropped?
Yeah,
no
Matt,
fucking way.
Like you're ignoring this shit, man.
Ignoring what shit? His undiagnosed brain injuries?
Multiple times.
His what?
Okay, so he still has punching power. Awesome. He should.
And a chin. He still has a chin, too. He's not under Arlovsky. Like, at all. He has the ability to absorb punishment, come back, be coherent.
You did see him, like, drop to the floor twice, right? Like, you didn't just...
Sure, no, he got knocked down. He did get knocked down. This is very true. He never left the realm of consciousness.
Erica, our producer in the chat, bringing up an interesting point. Brian Stann wasn't fighting like Brian Stann. He was fighting like a man who was told to fight like Vanderlei Silva.
Or he was fighting like a man who watched Vanderlei Silva as not a child, but as a mid to late teenager. Like probably before he signed up for the service, he's watching Vanderlei Silva fight. So that's been with him longer than the fucking army has. The guy loves Vanderlei Silva. He wasn't going to go out there and try to pick his way to a decision. He wasn't going to Rich Franklin him, and I respect him for it.
So, are you saying that Brian Stann could have won if he fought like Brian Stann?
I'm saying that Brian Stann's game plan was not to avoid Vanderlei Silva's strengths.
Had Brian Stann fought like Brian Stann and wasn't throwing looping punches in the pocket.
That is Brian Stann. That's how Brian Stann fights. This is just a more evolved version. If Brian Stann had fought like Michael, if Brian Stann had fought like Michael Bisping, he probably would have lost because Vanderlei Silva also beat Michael Bisping at a time where everyone was telling him to hang him up and retire and cut this shit out. You're embarrassing yourself, Vanderlei Silva. You're ruining my memories of you. I want my cock to get hard when I think about you. I don't want it to be sad. Please retire now so I don't have a sad cock in the future. Fuck you guys. He's got a $300,000 paycheck waiting for him for his next fight, and he's a fool if he doesn't pick it up.
So you're saying that you want him to take that next fight?
Goddamn right.
Okay, so here's a question. If Ric Flair right now had $500,000 on the table to go wrestle, should Ric Flair wrestle?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, well, hey, you can wrestle.
Really? Ric Flair should wrestle.
You can have a 15-minute wrestling match where there's no risk of concussions.
Ric Flair should wrestle. Really? Really? Ignoring all of his health issues, Ric Flair should wrestle.
For $500,000, he shouldn't not.
Oh my God!
He's not risking his health, and you guys assume that you know what Vanderlei is capable of, what his risks are, what could potentially happen to him every time he takes a punch, and you don't. Everybody is different. It's a lovely world that we live in, and the doctors get to look at the fighters, and you don't.
Oh my God! Ric Flair,
Derek,
let's scheduled to wrestle in Japan earlier in February, and he was not allowed to because he has health issues. You cannot wrestle. He has so many issues with his health, and the problem is that you're going with these guys are totally cool. Like I enjoy watching them fight. I enjoy watching them wrestle. You're an idiot. You're an idiot.
You just compared Vanderlei Silva to Ric Flair, bro.
All right, I got a question for you, Derek. And Matt got so upset that Skype got pissed at him. Let's imagine it's 1980. Muhammad Ali's about to fight Larry Holmes. You're cool with that?
Do you assume that Muhammad Ali's current brain condition is as a result of his boxing career.
That's not the point. You
Well,
saw how that fight played out, right?
Sure, but does that mean that that's the reason that he ended up getting the disease that he has now? There's correlation and then there's causation, and they have one with Ali, but they don't really have the other. Some people get brain disorders at that age. Some people that have never been boxers, it happens to them. There is a percentage of the population that is susceptible to that on a genetic level. Or because of, the detergent your mom used when you were a kid, or you were in a lead-painted house. There are all kinds of environmental conditions. We can't just boil it down to this one thing in every single athlete's case.
All right. Well, all right. Let's give you God powers. Let's say you know how that fight's going to play out. You knew beforehand. You knew how that fight exactly how it's going to play out. Would you still be okay letting Muhammad Ali fight?
Well, are you talking to me as God watching over it, or as the doctor that cleared him and said, whether or not I think you're going to win, I don't think that you're going to significantly impair yourself. I think that you're fit to fight.
You're the doctor,
Mhm.
and God has come down to you and said, Derek, here's videotape. I've got it. It's the fight tomorrow night. It's exactly how it's going to play out. Here it is. Do you let Muhammad Ali fight?
I don't think that's what you look at when you're clearing a fighter to fight. I think
No shit. You're not getting the video.
You say, can he fight? I think I do. I think if a guy passes the tests, then he's cleared to fight.
So
I think there should be more tests. I think that the New Jersey test that caught Thiago Alves's brain issue before he was able to fight and got that taken care of, I think that should be mandatory for everybody. But if Vanderlei Silva keeps passing all of them, then yes.
I think, ultimately, I
think you guys just put on aprons and carry feather dusters with your nanny state bullshit. I'm a fucking liberal, and I think that these guys should be allowed to do what they want to do.
Well, here's the weird thing to me, though, is that Dana White was so adamant about getting Chuck Liddell to stop fighting, and he doesn't seem to have that same urgency with Vanderlei Silva, and
Chuck
I don't
got slept like 4 straight times. Like, slept. Like, hey, where the fuck am I? What happened?
Yeah,
it happened to Vanderlei Silva one time against Chris Lieben in the UFC, and then once against Rampage like 4 years ago. I mean, for Christ's sake, they're not really comparable situations, are there? I'm pretty sure Vanderlei is also still younger than Chuck when Chuck had that streak. Vanderlei's, what, 36?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, Chuck was 38 when he started fucking falling off.
Yeah, but Vanderlei's also got how many more fights than Chuck? How many more brutal fights earlier in his career?
How many more training sessions at Shoot-A-Box, which were basically fights?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Vanderlei Silva is going to end up in a very good spot.
I know you guys don't, and you guys are assholes for saying that out loud.
No, we're not.
When you interview him, we're going to be like, Vanderlei, I love your fights, I love watching you, but you're going to be a drooling piece of shit in 10 years, buddy. You got to stop.
Did you see video?
You're going to fucking do the Lawrence Taylor and any given Sunday too. You're going to be shaking like a coconut on a goddamn tree.
Did you see video of Joe Frazier in the last few years of his life?
Yes.
I mean, come on.
A lot of people slow down in the last few years of their life, man.
Oh, you are. I don't even know what to say to you.
What's the average life expectancy? 67 every year. After that's extra credit.
I think it's like 73 now.
Okay, 73 now. How old was Joe?
I don't know how old Joe was.
I want to say he had diabetes. Like a lot of these guys, they live pretty shitty lifestyles after they retire. It's a lot of food, a lot of booze, a lot of cigars, a lot of other stuff.
Joe Frazier was 67 years old when he died.
Okay, he was 67. He was diagnosed with liver cancer.
That doesn't.
Maybe he got punched in the liver a bunch and it gave him fucking cancer. The liver shot.
Actually, Derek, as speaking of somebody who has had blood tests that showed elevated liver enzymes, anytime you get punched or kicked or kneed in the liver or anything like that, that can elevate your liver enzyme level, and it could ultimately lead to a cancer buildup.
What is the connection between elevated liver enzymes and a tumor, which is runaway cell division? What's the connection between those two? Oh, wait, there.
It can ultimately lead to that.
It could ultimately. You know what else
Yes.
can ultimately lead to that? Living for a while. Just being around until it happens. Ultimately, a lot of shit happens. Birth leads to death, ultimately.
Thank you, Dr. Derek Sabatiki.
I'm one of 3 on this motherfucker, apparently. God almighty.
Derek's going full Nick Diaz at this point.
He really is.
He's gone full Nick Diaz.
I talk better English than you. What are you talking about?
What?
You're out of line, George.
I'll fucking dare you. I need to hear the audio of at least that part. Because if George St. Pierre actually got pissed, I've never heard him actually pissed before.
No, the best thing is that GSP admits that he doesn't actually use Twitter and like he pays people to run it for him.
Well, no shit, Sherlock, but why are you saying that out loud?
Because I think it's hilarious that people tweet at him. Like, people tweeted at George St. Pierre thinking that he's actually responding to them, if he's responding to them.
Well, yeah, and those people are dumb because every tweet of his is just like, courage is not something. It's all this like motivational bullshit as opposed to Mark Hunt, which is just like, I just farted and woke up. Hey, everybody.
So before I move on to the rest of the Fuel Show, John Nash on Twitter tweeted at me, Subbo just doesn't want to hear anything that might make him feel guilty about watching people fight for his entertainment.
Why didn't you tag me, the pussy? You're going to talk shit, put my Twitter handle in there, Nash.
He probably wanted me to read it to you. He wanted you to get the full effect.
Fucking hit me with it. I'll bring it up on the air. It wouldn't be the first time someone shit talked me and I brought it up on the air, Twitter or otherwise.
Oh, respond to the comment instead of arguing about the comment.
It's not I feel like people want to feel bad about it because they should feel bad about it. You know, Ivan Trembo, who was an MMA blogger for a long, long time, stepped away from the sport and he said, I can't watch these guys destroy themselves anymore. They're fucking, you know, between everything we've learned about CTE, I can't watch football anymore. I can't be a part of this marketplace that exists that motivates these athletes financially to take part in this. So if that's the way you feel, then get the fuck out.
You don't think there can be any gray area?
The gray area is you have them cleared by doctors, and you put limits on the number of rounds and what's legal and illegal, and you give them health insurance, which Zuffa has also done, not because of any union or legislation, but because it was the right thing to do and because they don't want a union, so if you give them that, maybe they won't do the union thing. But that's the gray area. The gray area, that it's not a black and white between either you want these guys to retire because you give a shit about their health, and, you know, you hate the sport as a result, or you don't give a shit about their health at all, you want them to fight until they're 50. There's a lot of room in between, and I don't think Vanderlei Silva is at that tipping point yet, like Chuck was. When Chuck got knocked out by Shogun, I didn't say let him fight again. I said, yeah, it's probably time. It's not that time with Vanderlei yet. People fucking walk around with shovels because they want to bury people, and they tried too early with Vanderlei, and I'm glad he shoved it up their asses.
So wait, you weren't cool with Chuck fighting anymore after Shogun, but you were fine with him fighting Franklin then?
Right, yeah, because they brought him back for the Tito fight. They announced him versus Tito, and I said, that's bullshit. They're bringing Chuck back. That's a stupid fight. It's set up just so Chuck can win. They think he's going to win. That's the only reason they're making it. It's crap. I didn't like that coaching decision for Tough. I thought it should have been done after the Shogun fight.
I'm totally confused. Are you saying that it was cool for Chuck to fight Rich Franklin?
I'm saying he shouldn't have. I'm saying that they should not have made the Chuck versus Tito matchup that turned into Chuck versus Frank. That fight should not have been made. Those coaches, they shouldn't have been coaching the Ultimate Fighter.
Well, how can you say that, Derek? He passed all the tests.
He passed all, and you know that's fine. I don't think the UFC should have promoted it. And Dana pretty much said after the Rich Franklin fight, like if he wants to fight again, you know, I hope he doesn't. But if he does, it's not going to be here. I'm not going to make any more money off of him.
I'm just trying to understand. So he passed all the tests. So Chuck Liddell should have kept fighting.
No, because he had been slept like 4 straight times. It's just like with Jens Pulver after he had lost about 6 straight fights. Yes, he can pass all the pre-fight tests. I don't want to see him fight again because I know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in Vanderlei Silva's next fight. You fuckers thought you knew, but you were wrong.
So here's the follow-up. Here's the follow-up question. And like I wrote about this today, so I'm kind of plugging my own thing. But should an athlete who has been on the tail end of his career, should he walk away on a high point, or should he keep fighting, get knocked out, and let people build a legacy off of his legacy?
He should do whatever he wants to do. It's his decision. or her decision. I'm not going to criticize. If you walk away right now, I'm not going to give you shit. If you take another fight, I'm not going to give you shit. It is your decision as an athlete to decide when you are done competing. And the only time that I go against that is when it's clear that you can't compete anymore. Like it was clear with Chuck. Like it was clear with Jens. It's not clear with Vanderlei. And
But
to try to do it out of some kind of
good, but Chuck looked good against Rich Franklin before the knockout.
he broke his arm. If that fight goes another 10 seconds,
he broke his arm, Derek. So technically, if that fight went out of the first round,
Chuck would have won. That fight wouldn't have gone to the second. The doctor wouldn't have let Rich come back out.
And then Chuck Liddell could keep fighting again, right? Because he picked up a win.
Well, because he didn't get slept. Yeah.
No, I'm asking you to stay consistent with what you're saying.
If he would have won that fight, then yeah, I would have been okay with him fighting again.
Franklin, because he had a broken arm, and Chuck Liddell won that fight with a doctor stoppage. Does that mean that Chuck Liddell, who everybody was calling for his retirement prior to the bout, including Dana White, if Chuck Liddell won that fight, does that mean that Chuck should have kept fighting? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. But the fact that he lost, that's what changed it.
Yes. He got slept again.
If Vanderlei Silva lost this weekend, would you be saying that Vanderlei shouldn't be fighting anymore?
I would be, yeah, I'd say you're done. You're done. And if they want to clear him again, then that's fine. It's these people that criticize the athletic commissions like they're clearing fighters that shouldn't be cleared in order so that they can fight because the promoter has an interest in it, because the fans have an interest in it. I reject that conspiracy theory in its totality. I think it's bullshit.
How about our friend John Nash right now bringing up that Gary Goodridge was cleared by U.S. doctors and commissioners, for way past his due date, when the guy now is suffering from pugilistic dementia.
What was his due date? Was it September 21st, 2007?
When
did it happen? What was the tipping point?
Derek, what I'm saying is that you're ignoring.
Do you have to start showing symptoms? What kind of rubric do you guys want to see? Do you have to start showing symptoms of these diseases before you're stopped from fighting?
And you're starting to and your speech is now slurring, and you're no longer able to be a functioning fighter. And by functioning fighter, I mean that when you at one point you were able to withstand some punishment, and now your chin, I say chin in a quote unquote as like a all around, like all encompassing word for the ability to withstand punishment. If you're getting dropped multiple times in a bout, that is a concern. If you are slurring your words because you have taken so much punishment, that is a call for concern.
And who should be making these determinations?
Well, obviously doctors can't because they're the ones that are clearing them. I think that it needs to be the promoter. It needs to be Dana White.
You want to remove it from an independent third-party government agency and put it in the hands of the people that are making money off the fighters? You think that's going to make it less rife with fucking conspiracy?
How many people wrote that it's time for Vanderlei Silva to walk away?
How many people wrote that before the fucking fight that he won?
No, but we've been saying it for a year now.
And you've been wrong the whole time.
You haven't. Okay, so we had one left in the tank.
Okay, were they not writing it before the Bisping fight?
Fucking hard.
Were they not writing it before the Kung Lee fight? Vanderlei's now won 3 fights at 185 where everyone wrote him off for dead before it happened. And he's still smiling. He's still giving good interviews. He's still making people laugh.
He's not giving good interviews.
He's a fantastic interview. He's hilarious.
What did he say?
In the post-fight, he said, "I don't know what it is about Japan. It makes me feel young. I love it here." Vanderlei is love.
Those words.
In so many
and it
words.
Sure as hell didn't sound like that.
No, I'm more eloquent than he. But hey, he might not have been that eloquent as a teenager. You don't know if this motherfucker was on the debate team before he started fighting. Like, his IQ went from where to where. This is all bullshit, make-up, fairy tale, make-believe. That's all it is.
Okay, so you're right. You're right. Chuck Liddell can come out of retirement. He's A-okay.
No,
Chuck Liddell can keep fighting again. He's
that's not what I said at all. He's got slept in like his last 4 fights. He's done.
No, Chuck, hold on. Come back, man. You're right.
I want to step in. I want to throw some facts out at you. First, Chuck Liddell did not lose 4 straight by KO. He lost 3 straight by KO to Franklin, Shogun, and Rashad Evans. His last win right before that was against Vanderlei Silva, of all people. And then before that, he lost the Jardine fight by split, and then the Rampage fight in 2007 where he lost the title by KO.
So he won 1-5 in his last 6.
Hold on. On top of that, in all of those fights, in all the fights since the Jardine fight, except for the Vanderlei fight, he was the favorite. Even in the Franklin fight, he was a small favorite going into it. And then also, if you want to talk about 1-5, Derek, after the Franklin fight, Vanderlei was 1-5 in his last 6, and he had been knocked out 3 times in 3 years by Krokop, Henderson, and Quinton, which is the same rate that Chuck got knocked out, 3 times in 3 years at the end of his career.
Plus, he was knocked out by Lieben as well, man.
Yeah, it knocked out by Chris Lieben, who, when compared to Chuck's losses, it doesn't compare at all in terms of quality of opponent.
And then they gave him the Kung Lee fight after the Chris Lieben fight at that point when you were talking about during his slide. And yes, he lost the Rich Franklin fight, but he fucking almost won in the second round. Super competitive bout. At no point did you doubt whether or not each competitor deserved to be in the cage or had anything left in the tank.
No. At the end, after that fight, I'm talking about the UFC 147 one. People were calling for his retirement.
People were calling for his retirement after the Chris Lieben fight. People were calling for his retirement after, mostly after the Chris Lieben fight. Also after the Kung Lee fight, along the same retire on a high note, you just won, da-da-da-da-da notion. And fuck that.
What happens if you're too stupid to walk away?
I want to know, Derek, what's the difference between Vanderlei Silva's 1-5 with 3 knockouts and Chuck's 1-5 with 3 knockouts?
Well, you have Vanderlei descending a weight class during the midst of that after the Jackson knockout and the Franklin fight. After the Jackson knockout, it became clear he was a little too small for 205. He moved down, fought Franklin at the catch weight, and then beat Michael Bisping when Michael Bisping was angling for a title shot, angling for his first top 10 win, and won a lot of fights in a row in his middleweight debut. So he moved down and debuted a weight class, and now he's 2-1 at 185. The loss to Franklin was again at the Franklin weight. Not 190 instead of 195. The difference is that Vanderlei is younger. One of Vanderlei's knockouts also in Pride came to a heavyweight, so I'm not sure you can really hold that against him as far as not having a chin. It was his first knockout in a million goddamn years.
I can't, dude. I can't. I have to leave. This is ridiculous. I'm done.
Well, that's cool. They're the exact same person, Chuck Liddell and Vanderlei Silva. Never mind what their careers have done since then.
This is insane. Like, Mike, am I wrong? This is absolutely insane. What he's saying.
I can appreciate the argument, but I do think presented the evidence, it's an insane position to have that they're not at all comparable.
Maybe I should have advocated for Chuck more. Maybe because I watched his knockouts live, the Rashad knockout, which shocked me and everything, I felt a little more, I don't know if the word is protective, but I felt like he was a little more damaged at that point. Maybe that's just because of my own bias, because I saw his knockouts live and Vanderlei's happened in Japan when I wasn't watching.
You're saying you're disregarding Mirko Krokop's KO because Krokop was a heavyweight. That doesn't fucking make sense. You're disregarding Dan Henderson's KO. You're disregarding what you're doing is you're trying to rewrite history and you're trying to make an argument out of something where you're completely wrong. Going back to the end of Pride, he's been knocked out, and I'm talking from the Mirko Krokop fight, which is Final Conflict Absolute back in 2006. Okay. He got knocked out by Krokop, knocked out by Dan Henderson, knocked out by Quinton Jackson, knocked out by Chris Lieben. He was dropped in the Brian Stan fight multiple times, dropped by Rich Franklin multiple times. He was and he was dropped multiple times by Chuck Liddell. So,
you were going to mention something nice about Kung Lee, but he actually shit kicked Kung Lee.
Yeah. But the reality is that no matter how you're trying to spin this, the guy's like from 2006, he's been getting dropped in fights.
What's his middleweight record right now?
His middleweight record right now is 2-1.
2-1. Okay, cool. And he's done that since 2010, and he's done that against a top 10 fighter in Michael Bisping, and a guy who we thought was dead but turned out to be, have a little bit left in the tank in Kung Lee. I'm more inclined than ever to chalk up the Chris Lieben knockout as a fluke.
Really?
Yeah, I think the bad nights happen. Sometimes you get caught with a shot. He went out and did the exact same thing to Brian Stanley did with Chris Lieben.
I wasn't kidding. I'm done. This is absolutely insane.
I can't believe we spent that much time on this topic, but yeah, Vanderlei Silva. My man.
I'm done. Have a good one, guys.
Look what you did, Derek.
Mandalay Silva knocking out Matthew Roth in the second round. This is fantastic.
Look what you did, Derek.
I thought he was done.
Now I can't even talk. Now I can't even gloat about Stefan Struve losing.
Oh, well, maybe he'll call back in for that. But then he'll have to talk about Mark Hunt turning down Junior Dos Santos.
One bit of breaking news. Apparently, Ariel Helwani tweeting that John Fitch found a home with the World Series of Fighting.
Who's he going to fight?
I don't know. Find someone.
Do they have, like, who are their welterweights? I can't even name anybody on their roster at that weight class.
I couldn't name anyone in their weight class. Period. Or under contract to them. Period. No idea who's in that promotion. Man, Derek, you really put a sour note in the end of this podcast here.
Derek Jeter should fucking quit. He's dumb. He's terrible. He's played past his prime. He just led the fucking majors in hits last year. And I'm not even sad. I'm not even sad at the pouty face. I had nothing. That's fine. If you want, you know what? If Vanderlei had lost and been knocked out and retired in the ring, you guys be shoving it up my ass just the same. And I'd take it. I wouldn't leave like a bitch.
I'm glad that you tweeted that to Matt too.
That's not how it fucking works.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice for him to see. I just don't see how you can't. Like I said, I appreciate the argument you're making.
I can concede that there is an inconsistency there, and I think that it is because I witnessed all of Chuck's downfall. From him at the top of his powers to dead. And I didn't see that with Vanderlei. I saw him come over. I saw him in a competitive fight with Chuck. Then he lost to Rampage. Then he moved down and started winning again and looking good. So that it's a resurgence to me with Vanderlei Silva, not some kind of novelty. How long can he keep this up deal? I don't think he's going to win a title anymore, but I think he's a competitive top 10 guy in the division. And I didn't feel that way about Chuck towards the end.
I don't know. It's just. Like I said, one of the things I brought up was Chuck was a favorite in every one of those fights, except for the Vanderlei fight, which I think had more to do with people marking out for that fight, people wanting Vanderlei to beat Chuck.
Even back then, people were like, "Oh, this happened too late. Both these guys are shot. It's fucking ridiculous."
Well, that fight did come 3 or 4 years too late, but it was still a great and underappreciated fight. One of the first that should have been a 5-round non-title fight.
That's true, actually. Well, you can go back in history. There are a lot of fights that you would say that about.
My friend Aaron tweeting, "What a ridiculous argument. At least it knocked out Matt Roth's brutal connection and microphone, or lack thereof."
Whatever. Like I said, I think there is an inconsistency there, and I probably should have felt like I said, if Chuck would have won, I think it would have been a different deal. And he was 10 seconds away from winning that fight. And Dana basically said, if he wins, he can keep fighting. He's got to win to keep his job. He's got to win to stick around. If he doesn't win, then he's out. So it was a pink slip on a pole match, basically. But he took care of it.
Well, the last thing I'll say on it is, I agree with you in the sense of, it's Vanderlei's choice ultimately. I'm not going to be the one that wants to call for him to retire personally. I'm
that with guys, and I try to stick away from telling them don't retire. I just try to get out of that conversation altogether.
Yeah, I think it is a little presumptuous to tell someone else what to do with their life, but at the same time, I the thing that's weird to me is that Dana White, was so adamant about getting Chuck to stop. He almost, he didn't want to give him that Rich fight, and he gave it to him anyway, or the Tito fight, or whatever the hell it was. And he shows that concern for Chuck, but not the same concern for Vanderlei. Especially after the Levin fight, because at that point he's 2-6 in his last 8. He's been knocked out 4 times in just over 5 years. Lost to a guy that, back in his heyday, no one would ever expect Chris
But it was his first fight in a 1.5 year layoff. Huge layoff after the Bisping fight, and he beat Michael Bisping.
Why did he have that big long layoff?
He had surgery on something. I don't think that was when he got his new face. I don't remember. When did he get his new face?
I don't remember. It was sometime around that time.
Yeah, but I mean,
it was between the Franklin and Lieben fight at some point, I think.
But like I said, I'm chalking up that Lieben fight to Lieben's punching power and a shit ton of ring rust.
Well, you could make the same argument for Chuck, though. He fought Franklin after almost a 1.5 years off after the Shogun fight. He fought Shogun in April of 2009 and then came back to fight Franklin in June of 2010.
Did he have surgery on something? Why the hell was he out that long, other than the fact that he was probably asleep for the first few months?
I don't know. It looks like
and Chuck is also a full 7 years older than Vanderlei Silva. Vanderlei's 36, Chuck is 43.
According to this, it sounds like Dana and Chuck had a deal that he wouldn't fight if he lost the Shogun fight, and then he ultimately decided that he wanted to fight.
Yeah, I think Dana said something like, yeah, he sobered up, he quit drinking, like he went back to the gym, he started training real hard.
Yeah,
so I believe that some of the story was that like he was knocking him back a little too often, and when he knocked that shit out, Dana said, okay, you can come back and get one more.
Well, yeah, I remember even at the weigh-ins and leading up to the event, like people were talking about how much better in shape he looked than his last couple fights.
And he looked okay in the Shogun fight until he got punched in the face.
Well, that's the thing. He looked fine in the Rashad fight too. I mean, up until he got fucking blasted.
Yeah, because his chin was gone. And as we saw with Vanderlei Silva, he can eat a solid shot or two and get up and not get up and be on fucking rubbery legs. I never saw any kind of that queer street on a boat movement from him, even when he got up.
Well, one thing will be interesting, and I hope we see it soon. The guy who runs Fightnomics, I believe he's going to be running some sort of study or research or blog post about career damage and how it affects fighters as they age. I would just like to see, and obviously this isn't possible to see an entire career considering some of the smaller promotions and stuff like that, but I would like to see, just data about how many times a guy's gotten hit in the head throughout his career or throughout his recorded career. I think that would just be interesting, just from a data perspective.
Well, let's take that and then multiply it by the guys' pounds per square inch that their opponents, and then we can see how many pounds per square inch landed on their face.
I'm not even talking about it in that sense. I'm just talking about it in just pure intellectual interest. How many times did Vanderlei Silva get hit in the head between Pride and the UFC? It's just an interesting number. I mean, what would you ballpark it at?
Oh, for who?
For Vanderlei, yeah.
I'd say I'd put the over under on 1,000.
I think it's got to be
50 fights. 50 fights, that's 200 apiece or 20 apiece, and a lot of those fights nobody hit him.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see. So let's try to burn through the rest of this before we get out of here.
I got to tap just because fucking crybaby over here.
It's 7 minutes to the hour. I like to keep this thing to an hour, and so we'll talk about Stefan Struve just in the sense of where does Struve go from here? Because this was a fight that I think a lot of people thought he would win. He skill set wise, it was a fight that the advantage that Hunt had over him in the stand up should not have been as big as it was, as the difference between the ground game between the two of them. And yet here we are.
Struve threw his advantage away. He fucking chucked it. If when he basically first 20 seconds of the fight, he pulls guard, and within 30 seconds he sweeps to mount. Okay, that's a domination on the ground. And if it would have said, I was impressed by Hunt's ability to pass a little bit later in the fight and to actually stuff more than he should have. But from the very first round, Struve gave up mount once and the back twice, diving on stupid Dustin Hazlett fancy pants like whizzer arm bars, got belly down on one and couldn't finish it, and then later on decided to dare Mark Hunt to knock him out, and he broke his jaw with a fucking leaping arm punch. It's the most retarded thing I've ever seen. Who punches that hard?
Well, what's your how do you view Stefan Struve going forward now? Because I think for a while you and I both thought I think you were a little more bullish on him than I was, but that he was a guy that would be a perennial top 10 guy. Maybe kind of as he got older and put some weight on, might sneak into that top 5 at some point. But I'm not so sure now.
I think we'll see. I think because, I mean, for Christ's sake, Mike, you know, in 2 years, he'll be my age. He's 25 years old. He's got a long time left, and I really don't think that we've seen his peak yet. I think that when a big problem for a young-ish fighter, even with somebody who's had as many fights as him, when a big problem with them is fight IQ, and it's not Melvin Gillard where you simply believe they're too stupid to ever get it. But I can't get over the Rich Clemente story. It's my favorite story ever. It's, you're too dumb to learn jiu-jitsu. I quit. I can't teach you. And then he beats him in a fight by choking him out.
Well, I think the thing with Stefan that bothers me is that you know, it was another example of a fight, and you know, we thought seen some improvement, but it was another example of a fight that he should have been able to use his range and his height to his advantage. You know, obviously Hunt's a better kickboxer, and he's going to be able to get inside a little bit. He's going to be able to hit you, but Stefan still fights like he's a foot shorter than he actually is. He still puts himself in range.
A few jabs. I mean, Mark Hunt's face was a little fucked up at the end, so he did land some stuff.
I'm not saying offensively. I mean, offensively he's fine. He's just
sure.
He should
dared
not
Mark Hunt to knock him out at the end. His hands were at his balls. He was leaning forward, saying, "Come on in, fat boy," and that was a big mistake. That was a bad thing to do. You shouldn't do that.
It's a Ric Flair reference right there. Before we move on, I just quickly want your Gomi Sanchez. I don't need a scorecard, but who did you have winning the fight?
Gomi. Gomi won. Gomi was the better boxer, and he stuffed takedown attempts, and he was, you know, when he wasn't the aggressor, he countered beautifully, and he won the fight. Like, you couldn't ask for a better fight from Gomi.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people giving I saw a handful of people giving 10-10 rounds in the first and second, which I thought was...
People are dumb. Well, they were close. They were close, especially if you consider that maybe it was Gobi, Ted died for the first 4 minutes, and then Diego does a flurry in the last minute where he, you know, outlands him 10-5 or whatever, and you think that kind of evens it up. But no, I never score 10-10 rounds. There are no fucking 50-50, 300-second periods in life, let alone when 2 people are fighting.
We kind of alluded to this earlier. Fox Sports 1 officially announced by Fox or by News Corporation, which I believe they're splitting off. The news side will be News Corp still, and the new media, TV media stuff is going to be Fox Group. But some good news. All of the UFC content that would be on Fuel or FX will be on Fox Sports 1. It won't be on Fox Sports 2, which it sounds like will still have the issues that Fuel has in terms of getting into homes. I currently have Speed, which is going to turn into Fox Sports 1. I don't have it on my package. It's in the highest Comcast package here, so I don't know if that's going to change by August. Hopefully it does, because I don't want to have to be paying out my ass for one channel. But one question I've had, Derek, I don't know if you've seen anything about this. So all of the new content's going to Fox Sports 1. When the UFC puts a card on Fox Sports 1, are we going to go back to 5 to 6 prelims on Facebook now? Or are they going to? Because I can't imagine they're going to have 6-hour blocks of UFC programming.
That I'm not 100% sure of. It seems like FX is completely out of the mix. I can't imagine that they would be airing the prelims like you're talking about. I fucking was browsing WWE.com the other day because of the tragic passing of Percy Pringle, also known as Paul Bear. It's very sad. And their website kicks the shit out of the UFCs. It's unbelievable. The playlists that they have, the accessibility, the ability to cross-reference, the ability to search. And with the luck, I'd like to see what they do on Facebook actually move to UFC.com. You can link it right there on the Facebook page. You can take the player, it doesn't have to be native in Facebook. You can just link right to them in a new tab. I'd like to see a big overhaul on that website because I think it sucks.
Well, you have seen the overhaul that they did in the last month or so, right? Have you been to the UFC.com in the last month?
In the last month? When did they do? It looks. I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like shit.
I mean, I'm not saying it looks great, but it is different than what it used to be.
It is, but it is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still the same.
It actually, now that I go down the page further, it actually looks like that MMA Nation atrocity.
It's fucking
Just sort of too much information on my screen.
It's goddamn ridiculous. And all the UFC.tv occupies one tiny little box in the top margin. You can barely see. The shop thing, it gives you a bigger pop-up than how to order the fucking events. It's awful. And if you go to the WWE website, it's just gorgeous. And they have, the most up-to-date things. I would like to see that move, because I have considered that now that everything is going to be on Fox Sports 1, there's going to be no FX. It's either going to be Fox Sports 1 or Fox or pay-per-view, which I think is awesome as far as getting people pipelined into it. And Fox, people have made fun of NBC, but Fox seems really serious about taking on SportsCenter. They talked a lot of shit about them when they announced the channel. There was a video of a robot just saying Tim Tebow over and over again. Like, I think there's a window. I think a lot of people have gotten sick of ESPN shit recently, so I think that there's a potential for something to change.
I don't see it. I mean,
maybe not, but they're willing to. They're already investing a lot of money into it. Regis Philbin isn't cheap. They're going to be in 90 million homes to start out, which I think is more than FX is currently.
Well, I do hope that they provide a reasonable alternative. I don't think they're going to. I think it's sort of like TNA in the WWE, to go back to that wrestling analogy. I just don't think.
I don't know if it's that. They're not going to hire a bunch of SportsCenter anchors that retired because they were too old.
No. But I just don't think that there's going. I mean, I think there's room for a number 2 channel. I don't think there's really a spot to actively compete with ESPN. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and I don't think we'll really find out until 5 or 10 years.
Let's hope they're not as dick-tastic as Bellator, right? If you're going to be number 2, that doesn't mean you have to be shitty. I bet fucking, with all the conference call talk, which we haven't even brought up today, I bet that Eddie Alvarez is pretty sad that he's not on this coming card here. I feel bad. Well,
on our way out here, get your opinion. Silva Weidman going down, apparently officially signed for July.
The UFC can't make the fights that the fans want to see. They can't do it. Zuffa sucks.
Well, who's been calling for Silva Weidman?
People that said Silva's ducking Weidman, Silva's picking his fights. It's bullshit. Weidman's the number 1 contender. He's number 1 in the rankings, and now they're going to fight. But you'll hear no congratulations for Anderson Silva. You'll hear no congratulations for Zuffa for actually making it happen, even though there was clearly resistance on the champion side of it. It's all criticism. It's all negative. It's all bullshit.
Give me your final thoughts, Derek, on our way out here.
I gotta have more? Jesus. All right. St. Pierre's gonna beat the ever-loving shit out of Nick Diaz, and I can't wait to watch it.
Hopefully we'll have Roth back next week. We'll see you guys later.
I don't care if he comes back.